6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order.
Amy Teal. Present. Vicki Wilson. Here. Valerie Peacock. Here. Cheryl Taylor West.
Here.
Jason. All members are present. We have a forum.
Line item 3, invocation, will be led by Councilwoman Cheryl Taylor West.
I would like to thank our God for the many blessings we have, that we are able to convene together peacefully in a country where we have the freedom to practice our own beliefs and values, where everyone is considered a unique individual and accepted for who they are. We welcome discussions among our individual thoughts and ideas, especially those that are presented with great consideration and respect. We come together not as one, but as a community that seeks to create the best quality of life for all that live here in this very special place. This week marks a new national holiday, one that is the result of hard work and determination of a friend of mine, Dr. Opal Lee, a sweet 90-year-old African-American woman who gained national attention in her efforts to recognize the day of June 19th or Juneteenth as a hallmark of our democracy, commemorating the original civil liberty of freedom. Miss Lee, a Texas native and a resident of Fort Worth, can be an example of using one's voice collectively to bind people together and exercise civility, even when we do not all agree. In the words of President Abraham Lincoln, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And in a later quote, he spoke, I am very little inclined on any occasion to say anything unless I hope to produce some good from it. An old Chinese proverb states that humans have 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. Therefore, wouldn't we be wiser to listen more than we speak while thinking of the effects our words have on others? Help us to become better listeners and to attempt to be more understanding of people that are less fortunate than us. Let us build a reputation for being one of the most loving communities in our great state and in our nation. Give strength to the leaders and to the members of this community to do the right thing for everyone concerned. Let us grow in peace and in love. Thank you, God, for our many blessings as we go forward. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Line item 5, public comments and receipt of petitions. At this time, anyone will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters. Any matter not specifically listed for public hearing elsewhere on the agenda or matters under litigation for length of time not to exceed 4 minutes. No counsel or discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551042. We'll go into public comments at 6:04. Rachel Myers, if you'll take the podium and state your name and address, please.
Rachel Myers, 610 FM 2960, Whitney, Texas 76692. Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Myers. I attend Whitney Fellowship Church, and we are having a VBS this year. So kids are going to be coming, and during the week, they're going to be learning that God has a plan for our life. And part of that plan is for us to be in a community. And so they're going to be in families, teams, competing all week long, relying on each other to win these competitions and do these things. And so that Sunday, July 13th, we're going to be having our final competition. And the final competition is going to be each team gets to invite as many people as they know or persuade as many of our churchgoers to join their team. And they're going to see who can push the fire engine from point A to point B the fastest. And because we have a wonderful police department and a wonderful fire department, they have volunteered to bring out the trucks. So it's turned into a bit of a touch-a truck. And so we are needing to close down the streets by our church, so Railroad and Brazos. And we hope for your approval. We're really excited for this event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Corson.
My name is Joe Corson. I live at 818 FM 3050 in Whitney. I am not here on a capacity for WWFL. I've resigned from, or not resigned, but I've finished my tour of duty with them. But I've stayed in contact with them, and I've stayed helping them, recruiting kids, helping with fields and everything like that. I just want to try to see what the disconnect is between WWFL and city. From what I hear walking around the ballpark from other towns that are there about how our bathrooms look, how our fields usually look, but they look great this year. It's because WWFL has put they told me almost $15,000 into the city park, getting it ready for this year's baseball season, softball season. They put in over $5,000 into Bakerfield. So, I mean, we're trying to make a community with team sports and get them ready for the next level. And we can't really do that if our bathrooms aren't working, or they're locked up, or the lights aren't working, or we got broken poles or missing poles. None of the scoreboards work. I know we're talking about budget, money wanting to go in, come out, but I think youth sports brings people to the community, because if I'm wearing a or the championship for our football team, this past year we won it, 5th and 6th grade. Our girls for softball last year went to a state championship. They lost, but they went. This year we're in contention for softball again. But it's, we need help. We need to work together as a community to make sure that our facilities are up to par. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Killebrew.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Killebrew. I live at 608 Bush Drive. And in front of you, I have given you a paper. Dear City Council members, we are here writing to request your help and attention regarding the worsening condition of our road and the lack of response we've received in recent months from city staff. When we purchased our home several years ago, the condition of the road was not a concern. In fact, the day we visited the property, the city crew were out maintaining the road, and there's still a city sign posted in front of our house that reads, "City Maintenance Ends." This along with the prompt response of to our maintenance requests in the early years reassured us that the city was committed to keeping the road in good condition. When drainage and flooding issues began to develop on our end of the street, we communicated with the city and were pleased to learn that a culvert installation was planned to help manage the runoff. Unfortunately, after the change in administration and council, the project was halted and no further progress has been made. The situation has now deteriorated significantly. The area in front of our fence line is no longer safe to maintain due to a sharp drop-off left unfinished by the city. I can't mow it, and yet you're asking me to maintain the right-of-way. Flooding was worsened because there is no longer a proper runoff. The potholes have grown increasingly large and deep, and as you can see on some of the pages that I've taken photos of, making the road nearly impassable and hazardous to the navigation without swerving from side to side. We don't drive down our road like you're supposed to, because you cannot without running your car. More concerning is the lack of communication and response that we report with these issues. Calls to City Hall results in a vague assurance that messages will be passed along, yet no one comes out to access the road. We see nobody. We're the last house in the city on that road. Requests for callbacks from Public Works go unanswered. My husband recently visited City Hall in person, only to be met with hostility from the city managers, and I thought it was the city managers, but I understand you don't have one. Some secretary, who refused to look at the photos we had taken and slammed the door after stating, "I'm not going to argue with you," even though he was calm and respectful. He said, "I just want to show you the photos. I just want you to see how bad it is." We've been told that the city has no gravel, asphalt, or equipment to address the road conditions. This raises important questions. Has the city received any state funds for road improvements? Are our city tax dollars being allocated properly? What can be done to get this critical issue addressed? We're not asking for perfection, only for fairness. And I understand that we're not the only road, but I'm here to be as the squeaky wheel. All of the residents, and there are 11 of us on that road, are suffering from the condition of the road. We just want to be in partnership with the city leaders. We respectfully ask that the city council investigate the current conditions of our road. I would like to see you guys drive down that road. We're the last house. Call. We'll let you in. That the city investigate the current conditions of our road and the status of the culvert project. Come look at that ditch that's in front of my property. It's so full of mosquitoes, it's unreal because of all the rains. And the lack of response from city staff. We would be grateful for a path forward and to know that our concerns are being heard and
What time
taken
is that?
seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tom Killebrew.
I'm Tom Killebrew, 608 Bush Drive, Whitney, Texas. And I'm here because I'm asking for help from the city council and mayor. Obviously, I've not gotten any help from the mayor, but I understand she's busy. But in the council, if you're assigned anything, I'd appreciate it if we knew where you were assigned to, or your name's in front of your thing is just a piece of cardboard in front, just to tell us who you are. That's good city government, and be able to let us know who we're talking to. And thank you. But you're taking my time. And so sure enough, see, we chased a prowler out of our back behind our yard last Friday. Normally the police come out there at 10 o'clock. That's when he was there. And the police don't come down now because the road's so bad. We appreciate it if the police can come back and come by our area and help us keep those prowlers out. The roadway's not kept up, obviously. There's tree branches and limbs hanging over the road. There's not a way for 2 cars to pass without getting in the ditch. And a big truck can't get by without getting scratched up and tore up. We're not sure about the fire hydrant down there, if it works or not on the end of the city of Bush Drive. I'd like to check from the fire department, see if it is. They took out the other fire hydrant down in the middle of the street and put in a clean out. That's a fire clean out. Instead of a fire hydrant, that reduces the fire insurance on all the houses within 300 foot of that fire hydrant. So they just did that to save money. We put city approved internet throughout the city, but we're putting a lot of money into the library. There's surely a good reason why, unless there's a future use for it. I don't know what. But instead of having future money for the library, we could have money that we could use right now and on streets that are very in need of it. I was told that we're not the only street in the city that is bad like that. Well, we are. And there's other cities in the Lake Whitney area. Yes, I know they're that bad. But if you drive down that road, I will help you fix your car. Okay. And it's that bad. But the other thing is, we got a $40,000 water bill. Okay. We don't use any water from the city. It's a meter in case I need it. I got a well, but I got a $40 water bill, $40,000 water bill, and they haven't fixed it yet. And so they're just leaving it there in case they need to come against us for a $40,000 hit. I've asked them for 4 months to try to take that off. And they said they'd had to have somebody come down there and check the meter and verify it and then come fix it. It's not. I appreciate any help we can get. We love this city. We moved here because we did, and we want to continue to help in any way we can. And if he needs help with any of the plumbing, I'd be glad to help and volunteer to help to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we cannot comment, but we can address matters of fact. Do we have a matter of fact as to whether that fire hydrant that he mentioned is working?
Fire hydrant was removed because it's on a 4-inch line, and per state standards in the TCEQ and water lines, a fire hydrant cannot be for fire protection on a 4-inch line.
Thank you.
Denise Sambora.
I'm Denise Zamora. I live at 373 Lake Whitney Drive, Whitney, Texas, 76692. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Denise Zamora, and I'm the founder of Paws Place Rescue Inc., a registered 501c3 nonprofit animal rescue located just outside of Whitney city limits. I operate a private community-funded sanctuary. I'm here tonight because the animal crisis in Whitney has reached a breaking point, and no one in the city is doing anything about it. Let's be clear. There is no city-run animal control, no shelter, no structure, and no accountability. When someone finds a stray, a dumped litter, or an injured animal, there is nowhere to turn, no response team, no holding facility, no help. The responsibility falls on the public or on rescues like mine. And frankly, we're overwhelmed. I do what I can, but I live outside the city. I rely entirely on donations. I also have to be selective with intakes, not just for the safety of my livestock, but because of my own health. I'm physically limited in what I can take on, especially with certain breeds. I work alone, and I cannot risk the well-being of myself or the animals already in my care. So when I say no, where do these animals go? Because right now, there's nowhere. And the most urgent issue in this city continues to ignore its dumping. Animals are being thrown out like trash, tied to trees, left in fields, abandoned in parking lots, and there are no consequences, no accountability, no enforcement. Let me be very clear. This is not the community's job to fix. It is the city's responsibility, and this board has failed to even take the most basic steps to address it. Whitney needs real animal control. We need a city-run shelter that takes action, not someday, but now. We need code enforcement with strict enforceable anti-dumping laws. People who dump animals should face real penalties. You cannot keep turning a blind eye to this problem while animals suffer and residents are left with no support. The public is doing more than their share. The city has done nothing. The excuses need to stop. The delays need to stop. The silence needs to stop. Fund a shelter, hire qualified animal control, enforce anti-dumping laws, and for once, step up and do the job you were elected to do. Thank you.
Stefania Shelby.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name's Stefania Shelby. I live at 509 East Roosevelt, Whitney, Texas, 76692. As most of you know, not all of you, but most of you, I started in June of 2024 assisting the city with their animal control. I worked with the now no longer city or no longer animal control officer, to help with animals. We had a facility at one time. We don't have it anymore. But as Denise did state, the animal crisis is terrible in Whitney. But I would like the city council and the citizens to know there is still a shelter in Whitney. There is still help in Whitney. We have 3 people that are working. I currently have animals at my house, and 2 of my other people still have people at their house. I answer calls every single day. I'm still rehoming. I'm still spaying. I'm still fixing. We have 9 cats left at the church. In July of last year, we had 49 cats at the church. Myself and 2 volunteers have caught all of them, spayed, neutered, and rehomed. We have 1 female left and a litter of 6 kittens. I do agree that the city does need to do something. I know it's a money issue. We were told in October of 2024 that the city council did approve the building of a shelter and to be run by a nonprofit. That is the reason I started the nonprofit, so that I could assist the city and run it. But it didn't happen. We lost our building. We lost our animal control officer. I lost help. I live in city limits. I can't have all the animals. I currently have animals everywhere. Fosters everywhere. Waco, you name it, I've got it. Mejia. We need help, just like Denise stated. I know it's a money issue, but I also know there are buildings that can be used. There are areas that we can use. We can all come together and figure it out. It's not that much. We need a building, 4 walls, sink, toilet, accessible to water, place to put kennels. That's all we need, and we can run a shelter. Thank you.
Ann Chastain.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak. I'm Ann Chastain. I'm representing the vendors from our Whitney Farmers Market. And we had a meeting last night of all the participants of the farmers market, and all of us were in total agreement that we wanted to offer our thank you and our great appreciation to the council for approving our permit to be on Brazos Street between Washington and Railroad. Our very first opening day, we had 3,300 views on our Facebook page. We had started with 5, we're up to 7. We may have 10 vendors this week, but if it weren't for the council helping support the market, we wouldn't have had a place this year. So I appreciate that. I'm only a facilitator. I'm not really part of it, but we wanted to tell you how much we appreciate it. Second thing is we're trying to get more people downtown, and we wanted to announce that we have 2 events scheduled for the farmers market. On July 5th, we're actually doing a community picnic within the bounds. We're encouraging people to get fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and have some of, we're having maybe, I don't know what we're gonna do yet. And our theme is red, white, and you. And it's how do we bring the community together? So July 5th, mark the calendar, save the date, watch for further details. We have a second piece that will be coming up toward the end of July, which I hope to be on the agenda for that. We would like to celebrate our famous bench. It will be 103 years old this year. And we're gonna have a bench party, again, farmers market right in the middle, so we'll have cake and lemonade, but more details will be following on that. But again, from all the vendors who have been at the market, thank you very much for approving the permit.
Thank you. Come out of public comments at 6:23. Consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion. Should a council member desire a discussion of any item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately.
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 7.
Okay. Line item 6, act on the meeting minutes for May 13th, 2025, Canvas meeting and the May 22nd, 2025 meeting. I would like to add that line item 6 does have, prior minutes do have a small error on them. It says that the council voted to move forward with Team Zach for services. The council did not. They asked for more information. They wanted more information on that. We have a motion.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes. Yes.
Vicky? Valerie? Cheryl?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yes.
Oh, yes, motion passes.
Line item 7. Act on the City of Whitney expense reports and register report for May 2025.
Yeah, I had a few quick things. On the check register, there is an expense for Team Solutions, Inc. for $44,000. Everything else seems fairly routine from what I understand. Can you give a quick, what's Team Solutions?
Christie?
The cameras. Okay, got it. And I see we have 4 $10 charges, checks to our recount committee. So I'd like to thank the recount committee. There were 4 people: Jason Sneed, Keith Reed, Scott Pelham, and Tanya Booth. Please tell them thank you. They earned a whopping $10 a piece for that service. Thank you, guys. I think that was an important thing that helped a lot of people just have some reassurance in the process. And then on the statement of revenue and expenditures, page 13, we have a debt service fund for a 2006 CO. I wasn't here in 2006. So I was wondering if I could get some information, or if we could all get some information about the 2006 CO principal that's on here.
That was cool.
Thank you.
And to be clear, Christie, that's our last payment or very close to of the last payment?
No, we just refinanced it in 2017 and it won't be up until 20.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else.
Thank you. And with that, I will move adoption.
Amy?
No.
Yes. Valerie? Yes. Cheryl?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yes.
One no, motion passes.
Thank you. Move down to the department reports, the mayor's report. We have couple of proclamations. Is there anybody here from the Amateur Radio Club? We have a proclamation. Whereas amateur radio operators worldwide are celebrating over the century of the remarkable achievement and transmitting of human voice across the airwaves. And whereas the amateur radio continues to provide a bridge among peoples, societies, and nations, fostering friendship and the exchange of ideas. And whereas amateur radio operators have devoted countless hours to public service, providing vital assistance in emergencies and supporting local organizations over many decades. And whereas these valuable services are offered wholly without compensation by dedicated volunteers, and whereas the state of Texas and the city of Whitney recognize the important contribution of amateur radio operators to our many emergency response organizations, including Whitney Amateur Radio Club. And whereas these individuals further serve the public by providing free communication for local parades, bike-a-thons, walk-a-thons, fairs, and other charitable and public events. And whereas the city of Whitney appreciates the vigilance of these hams who are also served as weather spotters in the Skywarn program and the National Weather Service. And whereas the ARRL, the National Association of Amateur Radio in the USA, sponsors the annual Amateur Radio Field Day exercise, which will take place June 28th, 29th, 2025, as a 24-hour demonstration of emergency preparedness and the self-sufficiency of radio amateurs to provide communications without reliance on existing infrastructures. Therefore, I, Janice Sanders, Mayor of the City of Whitney, do proclaim the week of June 22nd to the 23rd, 25 Amateur Radio Week in the City of Whitney. Another proclamation we have, whereas Juneteenth, observed annually on June 19th, commemorates a historic day in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas received word of their emancipations more than 2 years after signing the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth stands as a powerful reminder of the enduring strength and resilience of African American communities, honoring the struggles and achievements of who they have fought for freedom, dignity, and equality. And whereas this day provides the opportunity for all citizens to reflect on the past, to educate yourselves with the importance of civil rights, and to recognize the ongoing pursuit of justice and equality for all. And whereas the City of Whitney is committed to fostering a spirit of unity, inclusion, and mutual respect among the residents, and recognizes the value of commemorating important milestones in our nation's journey toward freedom. And whereas Juneteenth is a time for celebration, reflection, renewed dedication to the principles of liberty and justice that unite our community and our country. Therefore, I, Janice Sanders, Mayor of the City of Whitney, do hereby proclaim the week of June 19, 2015, Juneteenth Day. Department of Emergency Services.
Honorable Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity. In the month of May, on the EMS side, we ran 56 calls. 60 were in the city and 5 were out in the county covering for CareFlight. Our average response time for the EMS calls, it was 5 minutes in the city and 9 minutes out in the county. On the fire side, we ran 119 calls. 7 fire calls were in the city, 13 fire calls were out in the county. We also ran 53 first responder calls with the medic here in the city and 46 first responder calls with CareFlight out in the county. Our total calls for the month of May was between fire and EMS with 175.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Police Department report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. May last month, 2025, Police Department responded to 395 calls for service, mostly involving disturbances, thefts, alarm calls, and welfare concerns. Made a total of 2 arrests, along with 203 traffic stops, resulting in 259 citations and warnings. On the animal control code enforcement side, the Police Department received 4 calls for service involving animals, a dog at large, dead animal, snake removal, and a welfare concern, along with 3 calls for code enforcement. Basically this time of year, tall grass, that's our major issue right now. And the only other issue is that we still have several properties throughout the city with the brush piles, but I'm trying to educate them as I go and talk to people at the properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last month, we had 2 major water leaks that we had to repair. Since I wrote the support, we had 1 backhoe go down. We had to rebuild the brakes in it. Our city parks updates, we had a couple issues several times during the week where somebody broke the floor drains and filled the drains with rocks, which involved flushing them out and burning up countless hours doing that. But I think we've got that solved now. And we had 8 after hours water calls and 5 sewer calls.
Thank you. Library report.
Good evening. For the month of May, we issued 40 new library cards, served a total of 1,391 visitors. We had 27 unique programs, and out of those events, 295 attendees. almost 1,300 items checked out. We had 8 volunteers throughout the month, working a total of 17 volunteer hours. For continuing education, staff had 8 hours of continuing education, and the director had 4. Our average patrons visiting per day were 82.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Municipal court,
For the month of May, we had a total of 97 violations that required citations, a total collection of $5,703.70.
thank you. Move over to our regular agenda, line item 8, deliberate and act on making the city council meeting packets available to the public by publishing the packet online before the meeting, generally when the agenda is posted.
Being made available to the public and some of the challenges regarding state laws of privacy. Whitney is a type A municipality, and the wording must be specific as what we can and cannot do. No assumptions are allowed. Councilwoman Peacock, you brought up previous privacy issues at the last meeting. Can you share them with us again?
I would really like for the privacy things not to be reported, like addresses, phone numbers of our employees, background searches, incomes, their child support, such as that. That's not anybody's business. That doesn't need to be out to the public.
Thank you. Those are all valid, very valid concerns. Councilwoman Taylor West, I believe you had some issues that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, many people that know me here know that I also am a retired city employee, 20 years with the other city known as Arlington, Texas, 20 years as a city employee. I was in my young 20s and a single parent when I began working for the city fresh out of graduate school. And it would have been very intimidating to me to think that my personal information, because I was an employee of any organization, was made public. I wasn't running for a political office. I was looking for a good job, better than fast food, to raise a 2-year-old. And I would never have wanted my personal information to be publicized to the public. Elected officials, that's another issue. I wasn't an elected official. I was a very low-ranking peon employee that worked my way up during those 20 years.
Thank you very much. That's very valid concern. This was on last month's agenda, and we had some challenges. So we were introducing, again, this month to address the concerns and get the correct wording for the motion so that we can move forward with the additional avenue to share the information with the public. Hopefully, with the revision of the wording of the motion, this will address the privacy concerns of the council members and the public so that we can meet the requirements to execute the motion. I move that the City of Whitney provides a public version of the city council packet minus any private information protected by the state law. This will be provided online.
I'll second that. And I have a question for our city attorney. Yes. Are we allowed to craft a motion that violates state law? No. No. So any way that we word this motion, we must release information that is already subject to the Public Information Act.
No. If it's subject, that would be one of the things. If you wanted, you're not required by law,
Right.
Open Meetings Act, to post your packet, only your agenda. Packet is just public benefit or just extra information. It's not required. It would need to be scrutinized before placing online for any information that should not be released generally your guide's going to be the Public Information Act, what can and can't be released under that. Because of that additional scrutiny, it will take more time to do your agenda and packet, and that would need to be taken into consideration. Our law firm could offer that service of reviewing it to make sure nothing is being posted. But obviously that just to be honest, you would incur the fees of our law firm doing that. But if you truly want to make it public, it can be done. There's plenty of cities that put their packets online, but it is reviewed to make sure nothing is going out in the public that would violate privacy, confidentiality, anything like that. So you can craft a motion to do it, but it would need to be something along the lines, if you want to do that, to comply with Texas law, you could just have it
In accordance with the Public Information Act.
or yes, just
And
law, something to
right.
that effect.
And if this council adopts a motion that the city chooses to not release information that is subject to the Public Information Act, then a resident can still request a packet that meets the Public Information Act scrutiny, correct?
Well, the packet itself is subject to the Public Information Act. Anybody can do that. What
Right.
would happen is that would have to be reviewed pursuant to that to see what can be released publicly. What would have to actually require possibly an AG's opinion for release or withholding.
Right.
So as it stands now, the packet that is given to council could be requested through a Public Information Act. That would be reviewed against those provisions.
Mm-hmm.
So your packet would have to change
Right.
in when you post it. And that would be what you have available to you for the meetings as well. That is generally what's posted publicly is given to the council members in preparation. At least from my previous city, that's what we did. I mean, it took us 3 weeks to get a packet agenda ready to go. But that was my previous city. So it can be done. And so if that's something that the council wants and wants staff to direct staff to do that, y'all can do that.
And to address the concerns that were voiced, regardless how intimidated a city employee may be, certain information is still public record and we cannot change that.
Some of it is, but there's a
Right,
lot of
certain. Right.
but it would be reviewed.
Correct.
Most city employees, but there is certain stuff that cannot be released. And there's certain provisions, and that would be, especially once maybe if our firm reviewed it in advance, y'all got the hang of it, and it became something staff could do on their own. But probably at the beginning, and that's going to take a lot of time. Like, I don't know when, you have to at least post your agenda 72 hours in advance.
Right.
Your agenda, because it's not required by law, you have a little wiggle room there, but usually you want to post them at the same time. You do. So you would have to take that into consideration of when are agenda items going to be due to leave adequate time to review that packet to make sure nothing is going out that would violate Public Information Act. So, that's something it can be done. Like I said, it's not required by law to post it. You're only required to post your agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why would I want to release public information to the people? Because if you're concerned about something being released that is actually private, that's not allowed under the law. What it sounds like to me is that there is a concern that information that has been ruled to be public information is perceived as private information. And I read the state law last time. I didn't write this. Your state legislatures wrote this. And I'm going to read it again into the record. Under the fundamental philosophy of the American constitutional form of representative government that adheres to the principle that government is the servant and not the master of the people, it is the policy of this state that each person is entitled, unless otherwise expressly provided by law, at all times to the complete information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. We do not have the right to decide.
What statute?
Yes, Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 552, Public Information, Subchapter A, General Provisions. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments they have created. The provisions of this chapter shall be liberally construed to implement this policy. B, this chapter shall be liberally construed in favor of granting a request for information. We are already required by law that if somebody requests this entire packet that nobody out there has, we have to release everything that is subject to the Public Information Act.
There are also, it would have to be reviewed because there would be possible items that need to be withheld pursuant to
Correct.
the Information Act, which needs the Attorney General to take
Yes.
45 days to review it.
Right, but
So-
we can't decide to not release a mayor's salary or not release something just because we don't want to.
There are certain things that are very much public information. There's also
Yes.
certain things that are mandatory exemptions.
Right,
Meaning I don't have to ask the Attorney General. I know I can withhold that without asking the Attorney General.
correct. And that's why we have city attorneys. That's why we would basically hand this to the attorney and say, review this in accordance with the Public Information
And then
Act.
we can do that. Just know that it will increase a lot of time.
Will increase time, it will cost the city money that you don't want to spend.
We're already required to do this when it's requested. Whether we do it as a matter of routine or not.
Bring up the open request thing. I would that there have been many open requests requests made to the city. I believe from the count that I got, we had 1 to 2 in a 5.5 month period to 3 or 4 a month to 9 in the last 2 weeks. This takes up city staff time. Keeps them from doing their job that they were required to do. Therefore, I think that we're going to end up having to hire a part-time person just to handle all these open requests, which will then require us to put it to the attorney, which will increase our fees because of all of this. So that needs to be put into the budget, I believe.
Madam Mayor, may I make a comment, please? I think we've gotten far off of the actual what we're looking to do here. I believe that everybody wants to release this packet. And I get the impression that the council wants to improve. What they're concerned about is what could be private information. Things, as the counselor said, the law already clearly outlines what is considered private and what is not. Whether anybody wants it to be, when you come to work for a government agency, you take it as an understanding that you are now subject to certain things under law. For instance, salaries is public information. There's nothing you can do to change that. That's going to be there. That's outlined in the law. There is a way that people can protect themselves from having certain private information released by signing a form. That's outlined in the law as well. So I think that what the city should do is, if the council so directs, is we will have to define a process in which, if we're going to release a 354-page packet, that we're going to have to jump on that way ahead of what normally we do, okay? If the council so directs, we will then send that to the legal department for redaction. Then that public packet can be released if the council so directs. It seems like everybody wants that to happen. I think we have a difference of opinion of what is private and what is public. I have forwarded every council person here the Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act training. Highly encourage you to look at that if you have not done so. It will give you a better insight into this. We can define a process. What we can't do is determine right now what that process looks like until we know what your directive is. I just need to know which way to go with this. I'm And I conclude. I yield.
Billy. And for the record, yes, this all does take time, but this is the basic routine workings of the city. And the whole point of doing it or adopting, releasing it as a matter of routine is to streamline that process. That way, there is no more question about it. The attorneys have taken a look at it. It's ready to go. Everybody who shows up to our meetings, because this is more than a lot of little towns have, can have the same information, well, close to the same information that we've got, and they can show up and be informed about what's going on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes, we do. Can we repeat the motion in a second, please?
I move that the city of Whitney provides a public version of the city council packet minus any private information protected by state law and be provided online.
I'll second that.
And so, roll call, Amy Teal,
Yes.
Valerie, Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yea or nay?
No.
Cheryl Taylor West,
No.
Jason Ince.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Line item 9, presentation from Westwood Engineering on master drainage plan under the FEMA resiliency program.
All right, let's get on to some other
Yeah.
items. So we had the opportunity to meet Westwood at TML conference last October, and we've been working with them on some other things. Recently, the council approved a resiliency program through FEMA. Westwood Engineering was selected as that engineer. One of the things that we recently had a meeting about was what we could do to do some mitigation in this town. And with that, we're going to have a presentation from Westwood here and kind of look at what we've done. Now, we've said this many, many times before in meetings, but with our road situation, we're going to talk about this in a couple more items here, but with our road situation in this town, we have a drainage problem. We have a drainage problem because we have a flood zone through the middle of our town that hasn't been touched in a long time. Now, we sent a letter up to Washington, D.C., asking for the Corps of Engineers to step in and help for us on this. Thank goodness we now have a contact with somebody that used to be closely associated with the Corps, and we hope that they'll help move on that because they have a responsibility to help maintain that as well as we do. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over, and that way he can kind of outline what the process here is and what this looks like going forward.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, City Council. My name is J.W. Balch, and I'm a licensed civil engineer and a certified floodplain manager in the state of Texas. And I work with Westwood Professional Services. We're a multidisciplinary civil engineering firm. And my specialty is in drainage, flood studies, FEMA permitting, master drainage planning, just the sort of things that we're about to talk about. Could you get the next slide? Thank you, sir. As Billy mentioned, we were competitively selected to help with HMA grant funding engineering services. We did meet with city staff, and the first thing is, okay, you guys posted this RFQ. What do we want to fix? So we talked about some of the priorities and some of the flooding risks in the area, and what we could possibly do to fix it. And as Billy has mentioned, the city of Whitney has a lot of needs. It's streets, water, sewer, drainage, all of that stuff. Without fixing the drainage, though, you're kind of it's like you can't fix the streets and the sewer without fixing the drainage first, because you're gonna ruin the streets later. Water ponding on the streets is not good for the streets. If your sewer is, you're gonna get infiltration. So it's important to fix the drainage first. And so what we've talked about is potentially doing a master drainage plan for the city, and using this master drainage plan to apply for FEMA FMA grant funding. There's really two grants that are available. There's FEMA FMA, and that's the one that we we want to target the most. And then there's also Texas Water Development Board, flood infrastructure funds. That's a little bit less beneficial to the city. There's a lot of like 0% loans that are associated with that. And then the grant terms, you may not get as high of a federal or state match. The other thing is we talked about that project prioritization and how we could phase these projects and create a holistic analysis to eliminate drainage issues in the city. Here's a GIS map that we produced out of this, and you can see that it's pretty much ordered, downstream to upstream, and that's really the gist of it. Is we have to fix the problems downstream first before we were able to see any benefits upstream. You see, area number 1 is by the treatment plant, and what I've noticed from that, just looking at it from GIS, there's an encroachment from the sewer plant on the floodplain, and that impedes all the water that's trying to drain through the city. There's also heavy stand of trees and vegetation that's obstructing the floodplain. Area number 2 is kind of a similar situation. It's just a very poorly maintained channel, and it's not excavated. We can increase the capacity of that channel, and that'll help drain the city. Area number 3, I know that there is a apartment complex at that corner. Billy has mentioned that 3 inches of rain and they've got to evacuate people. So that's a high priority target for us. And area number 4 is a bunch of structural flooding. So people's homes that are getting flooded anytime it rains. Areas 5 and 6 are, I would probably consider them to be more localized issues. And if we channelize the water there and improve the conveyance, that would substantially help with the draining the streets and any residential flooding that's up there. The map on there, the blue lines that you see, that's the FEMA 100-year floodplain that's published by FEMA, and it's adopted. I looked at the flood insurance study for the county, and it hasn't been touched since 1988. No studies have been done, as far as we are aware, since 1988. And that was using very outdated technology. They used to use them they used to do the modeling with punch cards. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Could you go to the next slide? So here's again the 2 funding opportunities that we're talking about. FEMA FMA, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program. That's federal funding for projects that reduce or eliminate the risk of flood damage to structures insured under the NFIP. So that's kind of the key word there, is that it needs to reduce structural flooding. So think of people's homes, the apartment complex, commercial properties, stuff like that. And the benefit, why I love this program so much is it provides 90% federal funding. That's grants to that community with a 10% local match. We've thrown the Texas Water Development Board FIF funding up there because we can use that to help support the local match. And potentially eliminate the cost to the city, if possible. That is pretty hard to do though, and so it's generally used as kind of like a backup and like support for the FMA program. Next slide. Here's some more about the FMA program. The types of projects that we can do with FEMA FMA, we can do project scoping. So that would be a master drainage plan. And that's basically identifying like all the projects that we need to do in the city, and then putting them on a prioritization list and figuring out how they score. We can also do flood mitigation projects, which is really what the city needs. That's the end goal. Like we need to get a flood mitigation project to fix a city, and then it can also help with management costs. So the city is having to devote resources and staff to administer this program. There's up to a 5% allowance for the total cost of the project that can get refunded to the city if selected. So some of the project eligibility requirements is that it must be a cost-effective project. We can calculate the anticipated benefits from a particular project, and then we compare them to the costs. So the construction costs of the project. And if that ratio is greater than 1, then it is a cost-effective project. And then it can be eligible for FMA funding. The community must be participating in the NFIP. It must meet applicable NFIP flood insurance policy requirements. And we also have to have a hazard mitigation plan. As far as we know, I think that the city of Whitney hits all of those requirements. There's also some environmental and historical preservation requirements. And there's some other small things out there. You can see a map over there of Texas. You know, Texas has been very active in the FMA program. We've gotten over $530 million in funding since 2015. So it's a very good program for the state of Texas. Next slide. In talking with the city, I just want to put this out there. Master drainage planning it's expensive. It costs money, and you know, we want to be cost conscientious towards the city. We don't want to put you guys in a bad spot. So we want to talk to you and figure out, you know, what are the priorities of the city? Do we want to fast track, you know, getting these projects done, or do we need to go a longer route and reduce costs to the city so that, you know, you guys can devote those funds towards other things? Option A that we're talking about here would be 2 coinciding FEMA FMA applications. And this would require some engineering costs upfront. And we would be designing the projects now, like probably in the next like 3 to 5 months to get ready for the next FMA application window, which would be, you know, it could be between October to January. That's usually when FEMA issues a NOFO, which is a notice of funding opportunity. And then if we go with option A, we would be submitting those 2 FMA applications. One would be to reimburse the city for 90% of the costs of the master drainage planning. And then the other would be to apply for the actual project to fix the city. My experience with the FMA program is that it takes roughly 3 years for you to get funded for these projects. So option B would be a kind of a linear succession of these FMA applications. We could apply now for a master drainage plan and get that money in 3 years. And then we can do a master drainage plan to figure out, you know, what are the projects that we need to do in the city? How do we prioritize them? And then we would then go apply for the projects in 3 years and then wait for another 3 years. So we would be about 6 years out before we actually construct these projects. Next slide. Here's a little bit more about what a master drainage plan is. You know, we're looking at identifying the existing flood risks. And, you know, one of the things that we can do is update that regulatory floodplain. That way the community has accurate depictions of what the floodplain is. We use the latest hydrology and hydraulic modeling software, and we delineate that existing floodplain for planning and for regulatory purposes. You know, we don't want folks building new homes in the floodplain. We also design projects that are going to improve flood resiliency. We reduce the level of flooding across all of the storm events, you know, anywhere from the 2-year storm to a 100-year storm. And we are aimed at reducing structural flooding and, you know, the risk of drowning and deaths. So one of the things that we talked about is potentially doing some low water crossing upgrades. It's pretty evident that there's some, you know, roadway crossings over, you know, Whitney Creek that do not have sufficient capacity. And those are hazardous for vehicles traveling across them. It doesn't take much to get somebody swept off the road. So we would also be trying to improve those low water crossings. Lastly, a master drainage plan is basically a strategic and systematic plan that to fix drainage issues in like an orderly and thought out way. So all of the projects that we're going to create, you know, we are going to rank them from most cost beneficial to least cost beneficial, and there will be a cost associated with each of those projects. So here's some of the costs that we're looking at. If we go with option A, we would be looking at about $115,000. And where I'm getting that number from is phase 1, tasks 1 through 6. So that would be data collection, the hydrology analysis, existing conditions hydraulic modeling, proposed conditions hydraulic modeling, and preliminary construction cost estimates, and then a benefit cost analysis. What I wanted to do was exclude the exhibit preparation and master drainage plan report. That way the city isn't paying out of pocket for those those items. And then once we apply for that FEMA FMA application for the master drainage plan, we would then go back and finish up those three tasks over there. That way you guys have a complete master drainage plan and we're minimizing the cost to the city. Option B would be the slow track. So we would be asking for $16,000, which would be like phase 2. And that would be phase 2, task 1 and 3. So we would apply for a FEMA FMA grant application to get funded for the master drainage plan. And that would delay construction by approximately 3 years. So with that, we don't have the information or the authority to make that decision. We needed to bring this to council and get your input. So with that, I thank you guys for listening, and I'll take any questions.
So is there any reason why FEMA wouldn't approve us for the 90% refund?
The FEMA FMA program is a competitive program. Now, what I look at with the city of Whitney is, some of the competitive like scoring things that they have is an SVI score, which is a social vulnerability index, and that ranges from 1 to 0, 1 being the highest. The city of Whitney is a 0.97, so it's extremely high social vulnerability. The other metric that we look at is the annual household median income. Here in Whitney, it's about $37,000 per year per household, and that's also a very cost competitive, or it's a very competitive figure to present to FEMA. So with those two numbers, I think that the city has a very good chance of getting funded through this FMA program. I've done FMA applications and been awarded for with less. That's what I'm saying. So.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on down to line item 10, deliberate, act, and give direction on Westwood Engineering Master Drainage Plan under the FEMA Resiliency Program.
Madam Mayor, Council, if I may, I wanted to just reiterate that the city of Whitney has not had any type of engineering study done to this capacity since the year 2000. And again, a lot of the things that we're experiencing in our pinch points are due to a lot of things that have nothing to do with anybody who currently sits here at this table, but have fell in our lap to deal with. And much like I made the appeal and asked the council to move forward with getting a wastewater plant engineered, I'm asking the council to allow us to proceed to get some of these drainage problems fixed so we can get some real roads in this town and quit wasting money patching roads and do this. I yield.
Billy, I heard you say that the last study was done in 1988. Is that correct?
That's the last FEMA floodplain map update.
Yes.
And
And,
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which study Billy's talking about with the 2000.
2000 was a building, planning and capacity study done for the city of Whitney.
Okay.
And that's about the same coincidental time as when I started working for another community, which I know the key cards that you're talking about, that was the most common data being used at the time. That's ancient.
Yes, ma'am.
Ancient. And it's sad that for whatever reason, and I asked not to hear the history of what happened before I came here, but so many years have gone by, now decades, that some of these major issues have not been fixed. And as our city staff is telling us, it's falling in our laps. We may seem like the bad guys, but we own homes here too. We live here too. And it's falling in our laps to make decisions to move, whether we go with the fast term program or the long term program. Either way, it's going to be costly.
That's the only thing that concerns me is the amount of money each one is, guys. But my thoughts on all of this, even before I became a council member, the city as citizens always complained about drainage problems. I think everybody in this room can say yes, nothing's been done. Need to listen to the citizens. They asked years before any of us was on the council to get something done and try to help them with flooding. And ever since I was a little kid, I don't see much changes other than cleaning the creek bottom. And people's houses still get underwater. They're up in the middle of the night trying to drain the water out, trying to divert water away from their houses and everything else. As a council member, I think we need to start listening, or I shouldn't say start listening. We need to start trying to do some actions on trying to help the citizens. This town has always had a flooding problem. So I think we need to move on it, move on something.
I would just like to say that, when I looked at this from a preliminary standpoint, I mean, the FEMA FIS indicates that there's 5 square miles of drainage area coming to the city. That's 5 square miles. That's of runoff that's coming through the city. And that's a lot of water. That's about 8,000 CFS, cubic feet per second. To put that into perspective of like a fire hydrant will produce maybe like 3 CFS. And so you're talking about like, maybe, like 3,000 hydrants going off at one time. So it is a lot of water. I have no doubt that the city has flooding problems.
And I know a lot of this is kind of have some background and overlap in item 23. And if I recall in item 23, there was a note that the floodplain level is actually higher. Is that correct? Or lower than what they originally thought?
No, I think we're talking about the ponds. That's a separate thing. Yeah.
And just by way of budget, if this is approved, how will the budget absorb this cost?
So that's something we're going to have to determine which action the council wants to take, which method. We'll have to do this by resolution and stuff, which we did not present you tonight. This is more of a get guidance from you. What we would have to do is if either one of those was an unbudgeted cost that we didn't plan to do in this year's fiscal year, we would have to do a budget amendment and move funds from reserves to cover it.
So at this point, we basically need a motion to direct staff to draft a resolution for what you just discussed.
That's correct. And then which option you would like to look at so we can kind of get the groundwork, laid for that.
Could we move to direct the staff to work up what each option would look like?
Yes, absolutely.
So moved.
Amy Teal,
Yes.
Vicky Wilson.
I'm sorry. I would like to have some more discussion on this personally. If that's okay.
You've
I
already called for a vote.
Okay, well then I vote no.
Valerie,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes, ma'am.
Jason,
Yes.
4-1, motion passed.
Christie, I actually do want to change my vote. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So with the change of Vicky Wilson's vote, we've got a 5-0 vote.
Okay. Line item 11.
Thank you, JW.
Thank you.
Thank you. Line item 11, presentation from Safe Build for building inspection and other inspection services.
Madam Mayor, Council, if I may, before we hear from the representative from Safe Built, I wanted to just, again, give you some background here. As you're aware, over the past year, we have been working with some local builders and contractors to revise our permitting process. And in that permitting process, we heard several issues with our current inspection company that have been unresolved or they can't give me good answers. We actually did put out a request for qualifications to try to contract with the local building inspector, because that's something that we heard from our builders that they would like to have somebody local who they can build a relationship with and that remains consistent. Unfortunately, we received 0 responses to that request. Actually, right after that happened, Safe Built reached out to us, and we've had interviews with them. They're very comparable in scope of what our current services offer, but wanted to get them in front of you see if it's something you want to look at. And with that, I yield, Mr. Vaughn.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Brad Bond. I'm Business Development Rep with Safe Built. Just want to give you a brief overview of our company. So we've been in business for approximately 32 years here in the state of Texas. We're in 38 different states. We currently provide development services such as permitting in over 180 municipalities here in Texas. Some of the staff that we currently have throughout the state, we have approximately 100 different employees, from permit techs to planners to inspectors to plans examiners to building officials to code enforcement officers to fire marshals. So we have a wide array of development services. So pretty much anything that fits into a city's development services department, we can help and handle with the permitting process. One of the things that I think really sets us apart from a lot of our competitors is when we come into a city, one of the issues that you just mentioned was consistency. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we ensure when we come into a city that you have a primary inspector that your contractors can get to know, and that there's not a different face in the city each week. The only time that we deviate from our primary inspector, our primary plans examiner, our primary building official for a city is when they're on PTO or they're out sick. Then we have a secondary that can back them up. So we do have a lot of capacity and a lot of bench strength when we do have someone out. All of our services are transactional based. So I'm sure you see in your packet the wide array of services that we offer with all the different pricing. There's no cost for all those services, 100% transaction based. So if you don't use it, you don't pay for it. But it's really nice. For example, fire marshal services in the packet. If your fire marshal's ever out and you need a backup, it's in there and you'd be able to utilize it. All of our staff is ICC certified. They're professionals in their field. Majority of our staff is retired out of a city that's got 20 plus years of experience, and this is their second career. So we have a wealth of experience and knowledge throughout our company, and that's why we're growing here in the state. We have a great reputation. And then another value-added service that we have that you won't see with other third parties is we have invested in software called Blitz, which allows us to perform virtual inspections in municipalities. And it's very popular among contractors and homeowners because what it allows us to do for those emergency type inspections where a homeowner has to stay home to allow the contractor in their house to change out that water heater, we can now do a virtual inspection when they get done replacing that water heater to ensure that it was installed correctly. The homeowner doesn't have to stay home a second day from work. The contractor doesn't have to come back out to the property the second day to let the inspector in. So it's a great value added service with the technology that we currently have that your contractors and your citizens are really going to like. And with that, I guess I'll take questions.
Good.
No questions? Thank you very much, Mr.
You bet.
Line item 12, deliberate act or give direction on safe built building inspections and other inspection services.
Madam Mayor, Council, if I may, you have in your packet, it may be under 11, but the comparison rates between our current services as compared to Safe Built's proposal. I want to point out that these are pass-through costs. These aren't anything that the city pays. This is what goes to the contractor and or the permit issuer or issuance. In talking with Safe Built, one of the biggest things that we heard from our builders was the lack of consistency with inspectors. One of the pinch points that they really had and the pain point was they may get an inspector today and they tell them to fix something. And then they get a second inspector to come back as a follow-up and find 30 other things that they then tell them to fix. And their question is, why didn't the first inspector? We've looked at options. This is a local. I've been reassured that we will have the same inspector in our area. The legal contract is not with you because it's under review with our attorney. I'm hoping to have that back. So I would ask the council that if this is something you want to move forward with, that we do that pending legal contract review.
On 12.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry. I move to, give the city the move forward with safe built building inspections and other inspection services in, with regard to the contract being reviewed by the attorney.
Say that again.
I move that we move forward with safe, built building inspections and other inspection services in, with regard to the contract being reviewed by the attorneys.
Okay.
I'll second that.
May I amend that motion or a suggestion to that motion and allow the mayor to execute?
Allow the mayor to execute.
Sounds horrible. I'm not going to execute anybody.
I'm sorry, but we need to have somebody with the authority to execute the contract.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a motion from Vicky Wilson and a second from Cheryl Taylor West. Amy Teal. Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West.
Yes.
Jason Ince.
Yes.
We've got a vote of 4 yeses and 1 abstain. Motion passes.
Okay. Line item 13, deliberate and act on a special permit application. Touch a Truck closing Railroad Avenue in front of Fellowship Hall for their VBS event on July the 13th.
I move that we allow to have give the permit to, a special events permit to the Fellowship Church for their Vacation Bible School event on July 13th.
I'll second that.
Amy Teal.
I had one question real quick before we go to a vote. And this has a $50 fee. Does that get refunded after the event?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West,
Yes.
Jason Ince.
Yes.
Motion passes with a 5-0 vote.
Line item 14, notification by the mayor and discussion of reappointment for Doyle Trey Jeton as municipal judge, the city of Whitney. His term runs concurrent with me, and I am reappointing him as judge for the next 2 years.
Point of clarification, municipal judge.
Municipal judge, yes. Line item 15, discuss the results of the 2025-2026 budget survey.
I wanted to open with saying that we did have a lot more participation this year than we did last year. I think we had 13 respondents last year. In your packet, council, and I think there's some of these on the back table if the people would like to get them. I think we made copies of those. One of the things we ask is when we do these budget surveys that you either have an active water account inside the city limit and or have a property ID number that you've paid taxes on. That helps us as a city determine the people who are responding to this actually are in the city limits. Now, in your packet, you actually have all the respondents as well as the verified accounts. So that way you can see what everybody has said, as well as the verified accounts. I know some people may not be comfortable doing that, but it kind of seems like we need to know that the people who live here are kind of telling us what to do. So the results kind of speak for themselves. I'll just run down the numbers real quick. And we did a comparison analysis based off of what we received last year. And I want to say this just on the record. A lot of the things that we implemented as a city last year came directly from this survey. Code compliance was a big one. Animal control was a big one. We implemented policies based off of what this is. So it's very important. If you have something, fill these things out. All right. So I'll start with the 25 participants that were verified. Let me put my old man glasses on 1 second. Street and roads was the highest. Is in what city issue matters to you most. 12 people responded to that out of 25 that's what matters to them most. The next was animal control, and then budget lower taxes with 6. Animal control had 8. I'm sorry, I failed to mention that. The next thing would be code compliance and beautification with 6. Transparency and communication 4. Water utility infrastructure 5. Parks and recreation 4. Sidewalks, alleys, gutters 4. Public safety cleanliness 3. Recycling 2. Emergency services first responders 2. Housing development 2. Mayor governance concern 2. Traffic signals 1. School week childcare 1. This is anybody that's ever done a survey. It's very hard to determine and bring any validity out of them whenever you look at numbers, whenever you get some conflicting information. That's why they say there's a control in surveys. This is just raw data. There is no control in this. So I say that to say this. It says if you can increase funding to 3 of the service areas, what would you choose? Street, sidewalks, traffic control, 13. Animal services, 8. Water, sewer, 7. Fire, emergency, medical services, 6. Code compliance, 6. Parks and recreation, 5. Economic development, 4. Drainage, 4. Police, 3. Development services, planning and zoning, 2. Emergency management, 1. Now here's where we get conflicting information. I'm sorry. The next one is if there's a service area not listed on the question 2 for which you would like to increase funding. Community involvement activities, 1. Cleaning up the city, alleys, sidewalks, wood chipping, 1. Street repairs and city appearance, car removal, cleanup near Veterans Building, 1. City crews to expand mowing tall grass, not residents' property, 1. Public works, 1. Bridges, 1. Recycling program, paper, aluminum, glass, 1. So these are the ones where we talk about decreasing. And if you recall some of the data we just discussed, if you could decrease funding to any of the service areas, which would you choose? 10, code compliance. But that was something that was most important to somebody. So 2, library services, 8. Development services, planning and zoning, 7. Communications and marketing, 7. Park and recreation, 7. Information technology, 6. Municipal court, 6. Economic development, 3. Animal services, 2. So again, we get some conflicting feelings there. Police, 2. Water, sewer, utilities, 1. Fire, emergency services, 1. If there's area not listed of concern for what you would like to decrease funding, please explain. All of them. Need a leaner budget to lower taxes, including administration. Decrease professional services, attorney at city council meetings, reallocate taxes from county services to city services, and ambulance. 1. When you pay taxes on your home, which statement best matches your preference? I prefer to lower my taxes even if it means cutting city services. 11 respondents. I prefer to keep my taxes and city services about the same. 11. I prefer to raise taxes to allow the city to enhance or offer more services. 3. So we run the gamut. I think, we try our best to determine and gather as much information and data as we can. You are talking with your folks in the community comes and talks to us. These are tools that we use when we start shaping the budget. So it's critical that we listen. And again, a lot of the policies that we implement are based off of these things. So with that, council.
As my former employer, John F. Kabbalah, used to say, if you don't speak up, if you don't vote, you have no say. I'm glad we had an increase in input from the community this time over last time. And again, this is our way to ask you, there's only so many dollars. How do you guys want to spend those dollars? And in contrast to Councilwoman Teal, communication and transparency did not occur at the top of the list. Streets did. And as I came around knocking on doors, when I ran for council, streets over and over and over was mentioned again. And I established 3 goals when I ran. One of them was communication and transparency. But looking at this list, that's not something our citizens are complaining about. We're spending a lot of time on dead energy. I think we need to spend more time on the issues that our citizens have mentioned.
Thank you. With all due respect, I didn't write the law about public information, and we're required to do that regardless. So our citizens can't say, don't release anything that's public information. We don't have that choice, which is why it's not on this list. I'm glad there are a lot of more responses. I block walked specifically to try to get that budget survey link out to more people and encouraged more people to fill it out, including driving to the very end of Bush Drive where the Killebrews live and leaving a note on their gate with that. So I'm glad to see that they showed up and brought people. As far as the budget surveys, I know we do still have the budget workshops scheduled in August, and those dates are on Tuesdays, correct? August 12th and 26th. And do we have a time yet for those?
I don't remember if we set a time. I will look back in the minutes. I don't know if we did. I'm so sorry. I don't recall right now. I'll try my best to find that information and get it out.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Move on to line item 16, deliberate and act on a final plat for lots 7 and 8, block 1, Whitney Business District, PUD to the city of Whitney, Hill County, Texas, being all of that called 4.2 acre tract described in a Baker Opportunity Properties LLC recorded in volume 2350, page 422 in the official public records of Hill County, Texas.
Madam Mayor, Council, so this is a very unique situation that we find ourselves in with this plat. We have a developer in town who has purchased a lot of land and is selling them off in individual tracts. Whether we agree with it or not in our subdivision regulations and per state law, anything that's under 5 acres of tract comes to the city for subdivision. This individual actually sold 2 lots to an individual without coming to the city to subdivide. After even being told that it was required. So all it had to do is this is the process, is you put it in front of the council. It meets the subdivision regulations. The lots meet the requirements. We just have to vote on it. It's not considered a minor plat because it's multiple lots. So we have to bring it to the council for approval. That is what it is. So this individual has purchased them. It will be part of that Whitney Business District, and I think he's looking to expand some of those projects he's working on there.
I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I guess I need to say the final plat of for lot 7, 8, block 1.
Second.
Amy Teal,
Abstain.
Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West,
Yes.
Jason Ents,
Yes.
4 yes, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Line item 17, deliberate and act on an asbestos abatement quote from MSC Environmental for 115 and 117 West Washington Avenue in the amount not to exceed $7,700 and authorize the mayor to execute any document in connection therewith.
Madam Mayor, Council, as you know, the building at 115 and 117 West Washington, the city recently acquired. And one of the things that we had to do was get an asbestos survey done. It's a commercial building per law. It's a public building that's going to have public access. So it has to have an asbestos survey. We did that. This is what came back. This is to mitigate the asbestos that's in there. And I cannot believe we got a quote this low for that. And that seems like a lot of money, but for what that is, that's a really, really, really great price.
I have a question. Number one, why is this a public building? Why does the city own it, and why hasn't it been put up for sale for a business to develop?
That's something that the council actually took up many council meetings. The decision to what's going to happen with that building has not been yet determined. Whenever the individual that owned that building actually reached out, he was in coordination with our former fire chief. He was wanting to do a building inspection on that building. The gentleman that owned it said that he did not want to make the improvements, and there was conversation about donating the building to the city. Between the mayor and I discussed, he asked that we send him a letter if we wanted to potentially take that building under the city. We have been looking at expanding municipal facilities for a while, so we'd kind of hope that maybe we could either have a community center and or historic city hall, maybe. But that's why the city we discussed that probably as a council for 6 months before there was any action taken on that. It is a public building because it's going to have public access. So just like City Hall, anything like that, it has to have the asbestos survey. The survey has been done. This is to mitigate said asbestos.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we go ahead and mitigate the asbestos at 115 and 117 West Washington Avenue.
And I will second that.
Amy Teal,
I'll abstain.
Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West,
Yes.
Jason Ince,
Yes.
4 yays or ayes and, sorry, 4 yeses and 1 abstain. Motion passes.
Line item 18, deliberate and act on accepting one of the following quotes or alternatives for Havoc replacement unit. 1, Sims Air Conditioning and Heating in the amount not to exceed $7,995. Or 2, Aquila Air in the amount not to exceed $7,852, and authorize the mayor to execute any documents in connection therewith.
Please say yes. So,
It is hot in there.
we have
It
been
is hot
dealing
in City Hall.
without a heater or AC in our office,
For a
my
year.
office, next door to my office for quite some time. We had hoped to get multiple different types of quotes to the council because we were trying to look for the most cost effective. The building was built in 1965 and the AC and heating units that are on the roof are the same era. We've had them worked on several times and they finally just bit the dust. I was going to say something else. I had to stop myself. So they don't work anymore. And so we looked at trying to do mini splits. The problem with the mini splits, they're more efficient. They're compact units. The problem with the mini splits are if you look at the quotes, one of the quotes does include electrical work. One of the quotes does not include electrical work. One of them actually is going to mount them on the roof, which we just had repaired and spent $70-something thousand with insurance, and I think was what the total cost was on that after that huge hailstorm happened 2 years ago. I'd rather not drill into that roof. So my recommendation would be, even though it's more money, a direct replacement for what's up there with a new unit is probably the best course of action to take. We do have multiple bids for you to look at there from 2 different companies that are both local. So we're trying to keep everything here. With that being said, I'll have questions if you have them.
I think it's unrealistic for us to expect city employees to work in buildings that are not at least somewhat comfortable. Obviously, these 2 bids come in very close to each other. And I also have an objection to Band-Aid approach that just needs to be repaired 6 months, next year, that year after that. And we end up spending more to have it not done properly. So I propose that we go with one or the other alternatives here.
So one of the two quotes, if I'm understanding here, is the replacement type unit. We have a quote from Aquila Air for $7,852, or we have one from Sims Air Conditioning and Heating for $7,995. If the council is suggesting to go with one of those, I would ask that we make the determination as to which one we're going to go with.
Do we need a motion that explicitly lists one, or can we craft a motion giving the mayor the authority to exercise discernment in the contracts?
You can absolutely do so.
Then I would move that we act on one of the following quotes or alternatives for HVAC replacement unit and authorize the mayor to exercise the authority to discern which of those contracts she would like to choose for the city.
I second. Amy Teal.
Abstain.
Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West,
Yeah.
Jason Ince,
Yes.
4 yeses, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Line item 19, deliberate and act on a professional services agreement with Westwood Professional Services, Inc. for roadway assessment services in the amount not to exceed $11,800 and authorize the mayor to execute any document in connection therewith.
So again, we're going to go back in history a little bit here, and I know some of these things are going to be discussed later in some agenda items. Yes.
Before we start on this, I see a lot of empty water bottles. Would we like to entertain a motion, a 5-minute recess for a bathroom break?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mayor, you're going to have to call a recess and annotate the time.
No, we're not doing it. Yeah, we'll take a recess at 7:41,
How long?
5 minutes.
I go first, me first.
There's going to be a run on the, going to be a run on the bathroom.
Just wrote 9:41.
I tell Lou this question. I'm not gonna trump, I'm not trying to trump your.
Okay.
I'll go over the motion.
Is ours?
There also, like, like.
Making a motion.
I had to go buy some today myself.
Campus, I could borrow some hot and bring it home.
I probably have some at work I'll get you.
There are some people that do all the colors, but I'm strictly a yellow.
Oh, you're a yellow girl?
That's what I don't understand about students that are getting textbooks online. You know,
You gonna make it in time?
I
As long as I may have
See, his flat lands, it says it lands at 12:26. And,
Take you 2 hours to get to Austin?
yes, I looked, I was like, I guess I have to go directly from Whitney, and it says it's like 2 hours. I mean, I know when they land, they gotta get their bags. I have a little bit of time, I just kind of want to. And this, hopefully traffic's not bad that late at night, but
Funny.
Do what?
I was trying to see, check flights. Don't make me download an app, okay? Why don't you download an app?
Over by any.
This thing, it's on time, so.
Large plot of land that was sold out for a subdivision. He's selling it off.
Like I knew where the electric was, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, no, that's what that because it doesn't have an address assigned to it yet, it's not even technically addressable yet. It's just a large piece of land that they're subdividing.
You know,
Yeah.
I've learned you can actually track your bags now.
Really?
Yes,
That's good to know. We're,
Yeah.
we're flying to Seattle next week after.
at least American Airlines.
Good, that's how we're flying.
Yes. My husband
I
on his
saw,
way there.
I saw on TikTok that they were now offering, from cruise ships for American Airlines to fly your bags home
Oh,
instead of you.
having to haul them
Oh,
around.
good, yeah.
Yeah, that, we went on a cruise a couple of years ago and that was awful having to lug our luggage.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so he got real worried on his flight because he had to check his carry-on because they ran out of overhead bins and he was like, can you please make sure it gets there? Because it's like a carry-on for a reason, you know? And so they made him check it. And so he's like, they said you can track. I was like, so.
I had seriously considered putting an air tag on ours.
I think I think while he was there, he got rid of some stuff. He had this suitcase was over 50 pounds going. 52 pounds. It was still $100. I
How
don't know.
much?
It was $100 for 2 pounds over.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is completely, because I was like, what's this $100 charge for on the account? He's like, how much I had to pay. I'm like, how much did you pay? He's like, 52 pounds. I was like,
Well, I tell you, I'd go to Puerto Rico again in a minute. They have the best pina coladas there.
oh. He got one
The
on.
best. They have that rum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, keep everybody up. Keep it moving. You got the long agenda.
Yeah.
He's coming back. And I don't want to have to say, I have to go. Feels so much better, Mayor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We have everybody here? Oh,
I think I should.
on a roll too. Line item 19.
Let the record show we're back in session at
Oh, back in-
7 PM.
That's okay. Okay. We didn't finish. 19, deliberate and act on professional services agreement with Westwood Professional Services in an amount not to exceed $11,800 and authorize the mayor to execute any document in connection therewith.
Okay, thank you for the recess because I definitely needed that. One of the things that we have been planning for a long time, and like I said, we've tried to listen and fix things. Things don't happen overnight in government. I wish they did, but they just don't. Last year, we tried to establish get a road assessment done to help us prioritize the work. That bid came in at like $54,400, and that was just to assess our roads. Again, we've built a great partnership with the Westwood engineer. When we went to TML conference in October, we were looking for wastewater help, streets help, and some other things. Those were things that were high on our priority list. So making that connection with Westwood was really great. This proposal here will, and pardon the pun, but this will give the city a roadmap to fixing the roads in this town. Not only is it a roadmap, and I'm sorry the Killebrews aren't here to hear this, but not only is this a roadmap to fix this, it also addresses drainage. They're going to give us drainage recommendations on these streets on how to actually fix these streets to where they'll last. And that's huge. We're stewards of this taxpayers' money, and if we keep patching these roads and band-aiding them, they're going to fail, and we're going to be doing them again in 5 years. So I would highly encourage the council to look at this and accept it. And this contract has been reviewed by legal.
And just to clarify, is this the same Westwood that just gave a presentation on that?
It is. It's a different part of their firm, same company.
Same company. And as far as the impact to the budget,
Again, this isn't something that we have budgeted for this year. We tried to get the road assessment done last year around the July timeframe, so we could hopefully plan for roads in the budget year, right? So that's one of the reasons that we kind of strategically planned it that way. This is not budgeted this year. Again, we're going to have to do a budget amendment, which with these expenditures that we're looking at today, the council will pass the budget that had no R&M, no repairs and maintenance, anything like that. So to cover the expense of the AC and these other items, we're going to have to do a budget amendment.
however, this one is a little bit lower. This is only 11.8.
Yeah.
54.4 was hard to swallow.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we act on professional service agreement with Westwood Professional Services, Inc. and for roadway assessment, services in the amount not to exceed $11,800 and authorize the mayor to execute any document in connection therewith.
I will second that.
Amy Teal,
Abstain.
Vicky Wilson,
Yes.
Cheryl Taylor West,
Yes.
Valerie Peacock,
Yes.
Jason Ants,
Yes.
4 yeses, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Line item 20, deliberate and give direction regarding Team Zach.
Council, this is just a simple follow-up with the information that was requested from last council meeting regarding Team Zach as far as the expenditures that went towards the auditors helping with reconciliation or their department. The numbers are behind the motion or behind the briefing sheet there. This is something that Christy went and looked at. Christy works with these, so she may be able to answer any of the questions you have better than I. The Team Zach, just to give a recap, would do bank reconciliations, basic finance, and if so, the council so directed, help with the annual budget prep. The basic finance services would be $2,500 a month, and the annual budget prep would be $1,000 a month. If that's on an annual contract, it comes out to be $42,000. We don't have to have a motion to move forward or anything. This was just a simple follow-up. If you want us to proceed, I would encourage some direction.
So this is asking us to approve a $42,000 annual contract as opposed to our grand total of $11,000 from last year that we spent on the same services.
No. I think the clarification was in the last meeting, one of the things in the budget or the agenda briefing was some of those funds could be redirected to help pay for this. And then the direction given to us was, what are those numbers? What do they look like?
Okay.
These are those numbers. So if you want to move forward, this was kind of the next step.
Gotcha.
And again, I want to just point out that there's not really anything I'm asking. This is a follow-up. I would encourage some direction if you want us to pursue looking at this. We are going to potentially be losing some staff, and maybe some of those funds can help pay for this as well. This is, again, an outside source looking at the city's finances. So
you have a contract that we can look at? For Team Zach?
We don't have a contract. The services was presented last, the proposal was presented last. I can try to ask for a proposal, I mean, a contract and get that in front of you if you would like.
I think that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
I think the more we streamline our financial system, the better respect hopefully we have from our community. And also in the application for future grants, the more that we can verify where the money is being spent. I applaud all of you for moving forward with streamlining our budget.
Madam Mayor, if I may, could we postpone that agenda item and move 25 or 23 ahead of 21? So the order of the agenda, 23, then 21, then 22. Is that correct?
I think that'd be good. All right. So by way of listening to what a lot of people were talking about when I was block walking, roads were a big deal, and so was the wastewater. Unfortunately, a lot of our residents really didn't know what was going on with the wastewater treatment plant, even though it has been discussed in council meetings. So I asked that this would be put onto the agenda so there could be a nice chronological overview of what's been going on with the wastewater treatment plant and what to expect, especially in light of last council meeting's TCEQ fine. So what I put down on the briefing was Whitney has had an ongoing issue with water concerns and TCEQ violations for many years, including the recent fine we discussed last month. The mayor remarked in a social media update that there is an already approved plan for a new water plant. I would like for this to be an opportunity for staff to brief council and the public on what has been budgeted versus done and spent to fix the current violations, provide an overview of financial strengths and obstacles, and share upcoming plans for water treatment. I'm asking that staff include any printed material that they might find helpful in tracking and understanding the issues and the costs that are facing municipal water supply facilities in the city of Whitney, and advice on moving forward, including how donations to the city for specific projects like fixing water violations and building a new facility should be handled. And yes, we have a whole bunch of documents here all lined up for this item that will be available when this is posted publicly. It'll be easy for people to sit down at home, read over this stuff, and see that the city has not just been sitting on their hands, that nothing has been done. And I had the opportunity to go tour the water treatment facility with Billy and got to see how much needs to happen every day in what we've got right now. And, you know, we need another facility. That's several $1 million on top of what we already have to cover. And as we've heard Billy mentioned, a lot of this stuff has not been budgeted already. So this is a lot of yes votes for a lot of money, and people need to understand how much is being spent, how much still needs to be spent, and where that money's going. So, Billy.
Well, this is a long process. I just want to say that this isn't something that, and it has been previously discussed, as Councilperson Teal has mentioned. This wastewater plant was put in approximately 1992, and I have found records that they were already having to address issues in 1999. Well, in 1999, I was still in high school. So, you know, it's been a while. And the thing is, we have been trying to Band-Aid it. Under previous administrations, there were certain expenditures put forth to try to Band-Aid it. We got into some cooperative programs with Baylor and some subject matter experts, and I'm using air quotes there, to help us fix the problem. None of that worked. I made the appeal to the council in, I think it was 2024, that we had to fix the problem. We could not continue to Band-Aid it. The council authorized us to move forward at that point with engineering a plant. The cost of the engineering at that point was $154,000, I think is what it was in here. That's to engineer the plant. That was done. Those plans were accepted by the TCEQ of July of last year. Right around the same time, we got notice from the TCEQ that our permit was under, we had to re-up our wastewater permit. And then we had notice from the TCEQ that they were going to give us more stringent parameters on that permit. We're already having problems meeting our current permit. So it kind of put a hold on moving forward with that. We also looked for funding opportunities because we were looking at how to finance this, right? $2.5 million is the rough cost estimate of what the plant's going to cost. There's going to be some other associated costs like running electricity to it, the insides and outs of that. So you're looking at still under approximately 3 million. Now, that's 2024 costs. I've asked for some updated costs to see if things are going to go up on that. We don't know what that looks like yet because the engineer wanted to wait to see if we were going to have to re-engineer the plant for these new permit parameters. I'm supposed to be meeting with them hopefully at the beginning of next month, and we can sit down and figure out where that's at. So we found funding opportunities through some government capital, which we've had working relationships with in the past. One of them was to pay for it outright. We get the loan essentially through government capital. The payment was going to be something like $44,000 a month. There was no way that we could do that, physically do that. Then we looked at options of about taking some money from reserve, putting towards it, and raising the sewer rates, which we did. That would pay for this plant. That would pay for it. But that was put on hold whenever they started talking about changing our permit parameters. Then we got into conversation about the Texas Water Development Board and the funding available through them. We made the application to them. Having a engineered plant, a shovel-ready job is a big deal, and the funding opportunities are easier to come by when you have a shovel-ready job. So we made that application, which the project information form was accepted by the Texas Water Development Board. If you recall last month, I made a statement that we may not be able to wait on those funds. We might need to move forward with this project. I will say that today I got an information sheet from the Texas Water Development Board for us to fill out. And this is a statement I'm going to read to you by the engineering firm. This is a good sign, exclamation point. It appears that it appears that Whitney's CW, that's clean water, and DW, drinking water, SRF, state revolving funds, are at a minimum in contention. It's not for final funding, but it looks good. So it sounds like we're going to be able to get some of that state revolving fund to hopefully fund this project. Then we can look at options. That's kind of where it lays. Also, I just got the, yesterday afternoon, we got the draft permit from the TCEQ. They did lower our standards, but as it stands right now, we believe we have the plant engineered to handle that. So I want to be clear, and I made this very clear before, this plant is a modular design plant. This plant is designed over what we currently have on our permit at 400,000 gallons a day discharge. As this city grows, they can buy another piece and plug into the plant. This is a 100-year plant. This is a solution, a permanent solution, and not a Band-Aid.
May I say something, please? And that is this phenomenon that Billy is describing is happening all over Texas, you guys. This is not just Whitney, Texas we're talking about. As you know, I spent 13 years in water and sewer business, Every city in Texas right now is dealing with this issue. Whitney, I don't know about you, but you don't understand the process of treating the water, cleaning it to put it back in our rivers and streams, and then it's all recycled back for our reuse. That costs money. And I personally am glad that when I flush a little handle, all that disappears and goes somewhere. It's all taken care of professionally and cleanly and safely. And some of you have probably traveled to other countries where you cannot drink the water. It is not safe to drink. I know that. And I, for one, am very grateful that we live in a country, in a state where water quality standards are expected. Here in Whitney as well.
May I say one more thing real quick? So we talked last month about the enforcement action that came down from TCEQ for $18,500. Chris Brennan, the Public Works Director, and I met with a subject matter expert, as we discussed in closed session about that. And we were both under the impression that regardless if we did what's called an SEP or a special environmental project, that we were going to wind up having to pay that fine either way. Okay. Chris Brennan has actually already started that application process prior to. What it looks like, what we're being told from the TCEQ local office is that it looks like our SEP is going to be accepted by the TCEQ. That means we've already invested all this money to try to correct these problems. They're going to take that, and we should be, if they accept this SCP, we should be receiving a refund for $18,500 for that fine, because they're going to take it out of what we've already spent and give it back to us.
But if we ignore it, it gets worse.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you cannot pick what you can pay and what you can't.
There you go.
And I mean, we did not have an option other than pay that fine. In my business, I deal with TCEQ all the time too. And if you don't reply to them, they're coming after you. And that's not a choice that we have, what we pay or what we got to do. And everybody in this room knows we got to have an option. We got to have a functional sewer plant that works for us, and we are growing. We don't have a choice, guys. We're going to have to do something. I don't like spending money just as bad as anybody else, but out of reality, what are you going to do? Run it on the ground and keep on letting the fines rack up and not pay them, and then the fines come bigger, guys. So we had to react on it, and because it would be worse. So some people might not like paying the fines. I'm sorry. You got to move forward or they're going to come at you harder.
That's a big reason that I'm hoping to streamline the budget more, cut spending more can, and adopt a rate that people can hear taken care of. And I had, one of the things here was about how to handle donations. We had a group of kids that wanted to shake a can and collect money for the new wastewater treatment. As unrealistic as it may be to fund the whole thing, how would donations to a city via kids, corporations, other funding grant options handle?
I got some concerns on that.
And how would building this plant, it's planned to be in the same area, right?
That's correct.
And how will that impact this? And this problem, this encroachment be mitigated via the new plan, or will it just be an ongoing issue?
Yeah, it's two separate issues here, because we're gonna, if you remember the picture where that had the three pond systems up there, We're actually going to build that plant inside one of the existing ponds, and the effluent's essentially going to stay at the same place. So it's going to be built inside of what's currently there. And so that's going to remain a completely separate issue from the plant.
Ask you a question. Ask somebody about the donations. Can we discuss the donations?
I think, that's it, but I think it's better, we're gonna.
Well,
Session.
I got some concerns for the citizens and I mean, we need to get it out.
Right, and so I think let's get, Ms. Ritchie's gonna call in and give a presentation during executive session to council. And then when we reconvene, if it's a service, like, that point. But I think it's better if she has some, topics she wants to discuss on donations and then executive session.
Then we come out of the executive session and then we can discuss.
I think
Okay,
it's better to get that advice from her first.
okay,
And then that way you have the full picture.
all right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did we read this agenda item yet? Okay. Whew.
Prioritize health, period. I have heard several amounts cited off the cuff regarding cost for fixing certain streets and sections of roads, as well as promises made about bids and work. We've had some bids submitted for road work, and those citizens have called out bids. And I would like for this to be an opportunity for staff to brief council on budgeted versus done, financial strength and obstacles and their upcoming plans. One of the things that has been mentioned was, speed bumps. I think Dwayne Circle was asking about speed bumps with kids play. People have asked about a crosswalk, like at that Pearl Street, but I know that's a state road. And I know that there is a blind gentleman over here that would like to be able to cross the street to go to David or to Alta. But I know that that level of crosswalk would be expensive, and again, it's not a busy street. So some direction to our residents would be really helpful on what the city can and can't do, how they should direct stuff when it's not a city thing, even though it's in the city limits, and what else is going on. And, again, for the public, we've got a lot of information here. This is a lot of really good information, and I look forward to it being posted online.
I got a question for you, Amy. You're the one that brought this to the council and everything. My concern is if we look and try to find revenue to take care of some of these problems that we do have, which you have acknowledged, and you see the city has, are you going to support and try to spend some money to fix some of this? But I mean, it's going to take money to spend to fix stuff. And my question is that you're not about spending money, but yet you're bringing stuff to the council and wasting the city. I mean, either we're going to fix it or we're not.
I'm bringing it.
You're correct, but you sat there in your own words said that there was problems. You're going to have to agree to spend money to fix our problems. You got to bend one way or the other. I understand we got to save money and we got to save the taxpayers money. But you cannot sit up here and tell us that we have problems and we need to do this and we need to do that.
Let me just say that in behalf of all of us, I think none of us sitting at this table wants to just go spend. If anybody has that perception, I think each one of us would apologize. None of us want to do that. We pay taxes too. We live here too.
I'd love to have the best roads in the county. I want everybody to have the finest. I don't want to spend a bunch of money. I understand that, but here's my deal. Every time we vote on something, then we hear how we were negative or we were in the wrong to spend money. But my deal is, yes, the public has spoken. I've heard people saying they need streets in front of their business. I've seen flooded houses. I've seen it all. We need a lot of help. We're going to have to spend money. We don't have that choice. It's the people that are talking, but then whenever we do try to do some action, then we get looked down on. And I'm a volunteer. I didn't sign up to listen to all of this. We need to do what the people want and listen and get along and try to work together as a group. Okay? You still hadn't answered my question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when it comes to a vote, you abstain.
Yes, and I mentioned it in the candidate forum of my philosophy of government. I oppose property taxes. And I don't like budgets that are crafted from property taxes. I absolutely have a problem.
Councilwoman Teal.
Hey.
I made it very clear when I was running what my philosophy of government is. And my job, based on the people who elected me and put me here, is that I will try to bring transparency to the process, since council had not done it before, that I would try to put information out there, and that I would bring their concerns to this body, even when I didn't agree with what their concerns are.
And no one agrees. Now, well, we'll stay all night, I guess, Ms. Teal, if you want. This is a team of people. There's not one person at this table that's more powerful than anyone else. This is a team. One voice is all you have and one vote. Although you tend to dominate the meeting and we would all like to go home eventually. And none of us, I'm talking now, thank you.
So I oppose having an animal being funded, taxpayer dollars, when we've got a lot of other stuff to do. It's not my decision to make, but people have concerns. And people have concerns that they don't think they've heard everything open record in a public meeting as far as explanation. A lot of times council tends to adopt a resolution, but not actually read an entire thing, or will adopt something, but not really explain a lot of the finer details. This is an opportunity for staff to explain a little bit more about what's been going on and answer the questions that have been asked in public comment about stuff like this. And in this packet, I'm seeing several bids: $157,000, $285,000, $185,000. $77,000, $43,000, $94,000, $89,000, $26,000, $87,000, $27,000. Those are all different bids for just the animal control shelter. And they're all different. And if I'm looking at these correctly, the last three are basically just an empty shell of the building, correct? So there's a lot on here. A lot's been done. A lot has been undone. And I would love to have, Billy's really great at explaining this stuff and summing it up. I would like to give him an opportunity to walk through this information, since we have a big interest in it.
Sure. And if I may, I'm going to defer to our chief of police for a moment, but let me before he gets involved, let me just give a rundown of how we proceeded. Okay. How did this become a thing? And again, it was concerns of citizens, the budget summary, things like that. One of the two things we heard last year was animal control and or code compliance, that the citizens wanted us to clean up the city. So we pursued some things. At that point in time, Chief Neville was still here. He, myself, Chief Gilmore, went to several cities, local cities, and actually brought in some subject matter experts about animal control, because honestly, we had no plan. We had no idea how to approach that plan. So we went to them and find out what's working for them and what we needed to do to implement something very small. Everybody at that point mentioned and said that the first successful way to get any control over a problem inside your city was pet registration. And we had that go to council. We had several months of where we said to do it for free, just come in. And again, registration, everybody, I get it. I get what that is. That was the process. We then hired, we put out for a contract, or I'm sorry, we put out applications to accept applications for an animal control officer. We posted that both to TML, we both posted that everywhere we always do. We had 0 applicants except for an internal candidate who was currently working at Public Works. Moved him into the position. He went and got certified as an animal control officer and a code compliance officer. He was working under Chief Gilmore at that time. Lot of things happening internally. I won't go into personnel matters, but there was a lot of things happening in that area. We wound up trying to look at options for animal control facilities. That's when I think Stefania and Drew started working hand in hand to it. At that time, we had a massive influx of animals that were the city took possession of. We had nowhere to put them. So we looked and we built the little temporary holding facility down at Public Works, which is it four stalls? So we have 6 stalls there. It's a temporary holding facility only to take dangerous dogs. We had a problem. We then looked at using the building next to the old annex to house the animals in. That was, again, a temporary solution because we knew that wasn't a permanent place to put them. Put them in there because they had AC. Kind of walked through that process. That's when we started trying to get bids for a facility, because that's when the council decided, hey, is this something that we want to do, or what are we looking at? At that time, the best direction that we thought we had was for the city to build a facility and have a 501c3 or nonprofit run that facility for the city. Because the city's not set up to run an animal shelter. Let's just be honest. We're not equipped. We're not funded. It's a process that it sets the city up for a significant amount of liability. So in so doing, Drew, I guess, and Stefania had secured some quotes that never got passed up to me. Chief Scholes, at this point, I would love for you to be able to come up and kind of say what you've done since you took over as chief of police, because that kind of gives the predate to where Chief Scholes has now taken over. We moved Drew out from under the fire chief and put him under PD, and that's kind of where I'm going to let Chief Scholes take over.
They have 3 months. And like I said, they have 4 service animals. Those are actually calls that come into the police department or to the city that we did, and our officers respond out to it. Prior to that, in April, we had 5, and in March we had 9. Most of them, I would say, were dogs at large, actually belong to citizens within the city, which we ended up locating the owners. And then it was up to that officer's discretion to respond there if they were actually going to find citation for dog at large. So, I mean, I do have concerns over the animal control facility. I love animals, I'm pretty sure everyone does. But basically just need to figure out costs going forward, budget wise, How are we gonna find it?
I have a question. Mention low call volume. You said in your remarks here, Whitney Police Department handles a relatively low number of animal related service calls. At this time, there is no strong operational demand that justifies a standalone city funded facility of this scale. And it's my understanding from animal rescue that if you build it, they will come. And if you have a facility in the city of Whitney, you don't see a lot of dogs getting dumped in the county. They drive them into the city limits and release them.
So that's great. That was the issue that we were having since, you know, the animal control's kind of been back down to neighbors all kind of, I've been a law enforcement for a long time, even working for a county. In this valley, you know, officers, they respond to dog at large, dog fights, things like that. Then sometimes we have to want to handle. Where we have temporary holding facility where you stay to your local veterinarian. You want to order for calls. But, you know, like I said, what you were saying, whenever you were going through this process of having all these animals here and trying to get them out to different places and different homes, a lot of people were coming and saying, you drop them off. I mean, that's it. Then we really haven't had that issue. We would have a lot more calls than we used to. But right now, we're currently don't have that issue.
Is it your opinion that this is a larger program that really?
I would say county, you know, we've also reached out, you know, there are other organizations out here. We, you know, everyone knows Martin, Boston County, talk to people, SCCA down in Waco, I'm from North Texas, Humane Society. You know, it's hard to find places to do that. You know, and I understand the struggles here locally, but yes, there are a lot of animals done within our, you know, not many within the city, but there are, it's outside.
And operationally, oh, sorry, fire station number 2. Can you tell me more about that and for animal control?
Well, I don't know much about fire station number 2. I know it's building over there. My main concern is about being in that area. If it's still in a populated area, neighbors, if you have dogs barking all night long, or you can find. That'd be another video.
If I may, can I expand on that? Chief is absolutely right. We had that offered as an alternative to build out Station 2 as a temporary or as a facility. Problem is, it's right in the middle of a neighborhood. And if anybody knows when you put 3 dogs together, what that causes, that's a problem. The city actually has some land out on Bush Drive. I'm sorry, State Park Road, that was the old wastewater plant that we were looking at building. Very remote, nobody away. So Station 2 is just not a feasible option when you come. It's going to create an additional problem.
May I make one observation? Once again, this is not unique to Whitney. This is not unique to Hill County. This is happening all over the state. The community I know a lot about, which will go unnamed, issued a statement today, no more animals. Don't drop any off at our facilities. We cannot take any more animals. We don't have the manpower to handle it. We don't have the equipment to handle it, and we do not have the facility. So this issue is costly. And as you said, all of us care about animals. In fact, I believe I've been criticized for caring about an animal, a couple of animals in my neighborhood. This is an issue. I don't know about spaying and neutering and all that sort of thing, but as long as we have animals being reproduced, we've got this problem. This is true. That's true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's your fault. That's why you're not being called. There is no answer for
If I may, one of the things Chief Scholes did touch on is, and Councilperson Gill, we did see a lot of people bringing animals into the city when they knew we had somebody. I know of one instance where we picked up a litter of puppies on 1713. How those came into the possession of the city, I'll never know. But the problem, it compounds itself when they know you have something and they think you have the capabilities of doing stuff. So everybody reaches out to you to want to fix that problem, right? And again, this is a larger problem in the city of Whitney. Ellis County just lost the SPCA and they're running through the same problems. And there's a lot of, everybody's experiencing these problems. Shoot, even half of us, I think, that are employees of the city wind up adopting an animal when they were here because, we didn't, we were trying to, we became part of the solution to a problem. Because we were just inundated with animals. I've since also become a little more educated on this process and having conversations with some previous city attorneys of larger municipalities that have done things like build a facility and have nonprofits run it. Talked to 3 different individuals about it, and they voiced concern or words of caution about proceeding down that path. Reason being is look at what happened with the SPCA. The city in a contract, right, with the 501c3, it's amicable at first. Well, then the 501c3 can get great donations. Well, just like everything else, it falls off. Well, then they start looking to the city for, look at a volunteer fire department, for instance, right? They come to the city needing funding. Well, the same thing kind of happens with animal control because it explodes and becomes a problem that they can no longer handle. So they ask the city for more money. Then they ask the city for more money. Then they go under and the city has it all under their control again, right? I don't think that's something that this city can handle.
I don't think.
Again, once the council made that direction in October, we've learned a lot since then.
I have one final question. An animal advisory board. Can you explain what an animal advisory board is, role in the law, and how it applies to Whitney?
So I would tell you that I'm absolutely completely ignorant when it comes to that. I don't know. Drew did establish an animal advisory board when he came back from his class because he said we had to have one. I know there are members on there. And I think Stefania and the mayor are on there. I don't know what took place. That happened with Drew and then it kind of just went away. So I don't know the answer to that question because I know that we're supposed to have one. There is something
I'm
in.
going to clarify. Jennifer,
Sure.
I would the county is not required. You might have one that's great, it's admirable, but you are not required by law. Just the county of the side of that actual requirement, but want to have one that's completely the opposite, is actually not a requirement.
And I think
just wanna
that
make
number is 75,000. If the 75,000 population or less, then
Then you're
one.
exempt from that requirement, but for an animal advisory board, yes, yes, so you want to have one that's great, but it is not an actual, not a requirement to have it. So I'm clarified.
For the record, I'm a big fan of public advisory boards. So if the council decided to move forward on anything, then I would love to see an advisory board set up. Officially. I know, and that's the other things, we don't, there's nothing in here about advisory boards.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that we just figured this out. So it's something that, you got to go back and look at things and determine. A lot of stuff whenever Drew left was just handed over and not necessarily in any trackable form. So.
And I guess similar to the library advisory board thing, I would like to see one with, you guys meet publicly? Never had a meeting. Okay, thank you.
So we're going to move on to executive session. If during the course of the meeting covered by this notice, the city council should determine that a closed or executive meeting or session of the city council or consultation with the attorney for the city should be held or is required in such closed or executive meeting or session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act. We're still in a meeting. In such closed or executive meeting or session or consultation with the attorney is authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code 551-001, etc. will be held by the city council at the date, hour, and place given in this notice as the city council may conveniently meet in such closed or executive meeting or session or consult with the attorney for the city concerning any and all subjects
and for any and all purpose permitted by the act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes, such as government code section 551071, consultation with attorney. We're going to go into executive session at 8:34.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
It's your
This flight's about to take off, that's why it's texting me. Are you okay?
We down here on this end don't really need this thing because we're loud enough.
We're loud enough. It actually makes a difference though back there.
I just.
Loud, even from me.
Come out of executive session at 9:00. Well, item 27, deliberate and act if necessary on executive session items.
May I suggest uh, a general opinion on donations, not specific to just infrastructure?
Yes.
Carol? Yes, ma'am.
Jason?
Yes. Turn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned at 9:01 p.m.
You ain't like. This is delirium. Oh, well, I hope your plane's on time.
It will, well, right now it's saying it'll be on time.